How's this for a lineup? Donkey Kong, Bubsy the cat. There's a prequel to the Terminal List. And it's always a good week when we get to talk about a new Sonic the Hedgehog game. Welcome to Reviews on the Run. All right, my friends, another busy week has flown by, and I've been streaming a whole bunch, and thank you to everybody that has been joining me on those streams. They are a ton of fun. I started the week taking a look at the new DLC for Donkey Kong Bananza. It's called Emerald Rush, and it takes us to Donkey Kong Island, which brings back all kinds of nostalgic emotions, right? It's really cool to go and see Diddy and Dixie Kong there, Grumpy Kong. And what you're doing in this game is, it's almost like a roguelike in a way, but it's very arcadey. What you gotta do is try to collect as many emeralds, as the name implies, as you possibly can. You get hired by Void Kong, and you have to bust through all kinds of environment, and you collect all of these emerald gems, and you bring them back in, and you basically unload them, and you get all kinds of rewards for the good work that you are able to do or not do. And then you get to go again, but the level increases, the amount that you're expected to get increases, the difficulty ramps up a little bit, because every time you sort of hit an objective level, you dump the emeralds that you've collected, and there's a limited quantity in the environment. So there's only so many that you're gonna find. So you collect what you can, and then there's a new quota that you have to hit. So the clock is ticking down, and there's a depletion happening. So there's a bit of a pressure cooker that's happening there. And it's not only on Donkey Kong Island, you also get to go deeper into other sub-levels within Donkey Kong Bananza and attempt emerald rushes on those levels as well. You're also finding statues that you can bring back to different places, and you can pose for photographs and stuff. And you know what? It's a really nice augmentation to an already exquisite game. The DLC is not inexpensive though, and it does feel like Nintendo could have priced this a little bit less for what you're getting, but it put a huge smile on my face. I had so much fun playing and streaming this, and I do think that if you finish Donkey Kong Bananza and you love it, this is kind of a no-brainer. You want to get that. And I'll tell you what, when there is an inevitable sort of greatest hits or Game of the Year edition of this and it's all collected, this makes this game irrefutable for the Nintendo Switch 2. It is spectacular. I'm going to give the Emerald Rush DLC for Donkey Kong Bananza at 8.5 out of 10. Another game I checked out this week, well, it's a collection. It's Bubsy in the Perfect Collection. And this takes us back to the early days of 16-bit action-adventure platforming games. Bubsy was an answer to Sonic the Hedgehog and the Mario juggernaut. And it was created with the real sense of like trying to hit some pretty high marks and make something that was going to be super fun, a nice alternative, some real competition for the other guys. The advertising was pretty aggressive. And what's cool with this collection is that you get some behind-the-scenes video clips, which I always appreciate and love. So you get to hear some of the stories about how Bubsy came into being. And you also get some box art and some advertisement art. So you can kind of see the attitude that Bubsy had right from the get-go. I checked out all of the games on the collection, and we're going through a couple of games for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. And it was interesting to take a look at Bubsy 1 and 2 and compare and contrast how they look and ran on each of these different platforms. I had played the first Bubsy game back in the day, but it didn't connect with me emotionally, spiritually, like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario, and there were a few other games that were really fantastic. I always thought Bubsy was pretty good, but not amazing. But in the rear view, and upon reflection and re-examination, today you can really see there's some beautiful artwork, beautiful animation, beautiful scrolling effects and things, and it's also incredibly punishingly challenging. Anything that hits Bubsy takes him out. And so there were a lot of deaths, but thankfully there's a rewind feature and there's CRT filters that you can put on. There's also the Japanese Super Famicom edition of the first Bubsy game as well, Claws Encounters. And then you get the Super Nintendo and Genesis sequel, and then there's a Game Boy game that you can play, which was pretty hard to get into, pretty slow, and again, anything that touches them kills them. They also have the Jaguar game, which ups the ante in the amount of props, and there's a lot of art on screen. It's a lot crisper as well, but it's punishingly difficult and confusing, so I didn't have a great time there. I really had the most fun playing the 16-bit stuff, but the really, really hard game to get into is Bubsy 3D, which looks like a prototype. It looks like some gray boxing sort of thing, but it was officially released. I remember reviewing that, I think, for our website, or taking a look at that back in the day, because this released, I think, in 1996, if I've got my dates right, before we launched EP on television. So I don't think there was a TV review of Bubsy 3D. I think we looked at subsequent Bubsy games, and that's where the collection ends, but they also created a refurbished version of Bubsy 3D, which makes the game a lot more playable, although I couldn't invert the camera, and I hope Limited Run is able to do that. At least I couldn't find how to invert the camera, so I was having some issues. I'm an invert guy. You know what? This collection is pretty great, though. It's really hard to refute. Like, if you're a Bubsy fan, and I was reading in the comments on the stream and on the chat, the people really had a fondness and a great memory for Bubsy as a game. This was a game that was a favorite platformer for a lot of people, and especially those 16-bit games. They hold up and they are fun to play. But I love the love, man. They worked really hard to get those interviews in there and get all the art in there, and I appreciate that so much. I love these collections when they go the extra mile like this. That's why I'm going to give Bubsy in the perfect collection an 8 out of 10. Caught a new horror/suspense film this week called Him. It stars Marlon Wayans and Tyreek Withers, and it's all about this up-and-coming football star, played by Tyreek Withers, who has a dream to become him, the guy that everybody talks about, this quarterback with all the skills. And what happens is that he does eventually, and I don't want to spoil stuff, he gets involved with a team and gets ushered to the current star quarterback, played by Marlon Wayans, home, where he is trained, and he goes through a series of different processes to up his game and to challenge him and to get an assessment if he is going to be right for the team and replace this veteran footballer, this veteran QB that is kind of thinking about retiring, and they want to check out the new talent. And so it's an interesting premise, and it's a premise that really focuses on our collective obsession with athletes and sports and how religion can kind of infiltrate into all of that. It's really a cool looking movie as well. I mean, the whole film, this 90-minute movie, feels like a 90-minute Nike commercial or something. There's so many incredible camera moves and color effects, and it's zipping all over the frickin' place. It doesn't stay on any subject for like more than 5 seconds. It feels like it's cut. It really is riveting when you sit down and you're sort of taken into the world, and the concept is cool. You see this kid who's being sort of pushed by his father at the beginning, the young QB, and he's really aspiring to be this superstar. And he learns through this training and through these relationships that he starts to make as he's edging closer to becoming a pro, just what he's got to sacrifice. And that's about all I'll say plot-wise. I will say that at about 45 minutes to an hour, I was starting to look at my watch. I was getting exhausted by all of the superficial polish of the film. I do like the concept. Justin Tripping is the director here, and Jordan Peele is the producer. I think it's going to get people talking because we live in such a fame-chasing society, and what that means and what that entails. That's a very interesting platform to position a sports movie on. I'll tell you this, the NFL is not involved with this at all, and you will totally understand why if you see this movie. There were certainly some scenes that were incredibly powerful and horrifying, and I thought the performers were actually excellent. I thought Tyreek Withers was terrific, and Marlon Wayans especially really brings it. He's fantastic in this role. So comfortable, so powerful, so raw, and I was impressed by all of that. I just got exhausted by the points and the messaging and the style of this film, just hammering it over my head that this is what it's about, this is what it's about, and we're gonna make the whole freaking picture. Everything's painted in red, and it was just too surface, and it kind of undermined all of the interesting work that was set up in the picture. It's hard to land these horror suspense thriller movies. We all know that. And I think this movie kind of unravels as it sort of comes to its conclusion. Some people might love this movie. I just did not love the movie. I had checked out by about the midway point, but I do appreciate all the work in it. It just wasn't for me. I'm gonna give Him a 5.5 out of 10. It's not too often that I sit down and I stream a game from beginning to end, but that's exactly what I did with a new game called Herdling, which is developed by Okomotive and published by Panic. And this is a really trippy, cool, evocative adventure game where you play this little shepherd boy who meets up with these creatures called calicorns, and you're trying to shepherd them along. You're trying to get them over a mountain range, and you've got some obstacles and you've got some other calicorns to collect as you go. You've got to protect them. They get attacked a little bit along the way. They've got some environmental treachery to navigate around, and you are sort of lost in this wilderness. It starts off in an urban setting and it quickly sort of transforms from an industrial area into the woods, and you're going across water, you're going through snow, you're dealing with the elements, and you're dealing with this beautiful world which has gorgeous views and absolutely stunning music to kind of amp everything up, and it's really transportive. I felt like as I was streaming it, people were really impressed by the vibe of the game and sort of the chill quality of everything, of just being able to lose yourself in the sort of exploratory nature of everything. It did kind of remind me of the similar kinds of feelings that I got playing Sword of the Sea, which I thought was a much more enjoyable game than this in its totality. But I did appreciate this experience all the way through. It's just that it's not incredibly long and it's not difficult at all. It's really just about trying to keep your herd alive, and you can customize each of the different creatures. You can put ornaments on them, and you're petting them and you're feeding them and you're taking care of them, and you do kind of bond with them and you name each one. There is so much love in this game. I just found it to be kind of a slight diversion, you know? I appreciate all of its artistry, and I do think that it's a great artistic achievement. But as a game, it's kind of like you play through it once and then you put it away. And maybe I'll think of this down the road, but I felt a little bit underwhelmed after I concluded this. And I am not sad that I did play it, though. I really appreciated what I experienced while I was experiencing it. It's just not one of those games that I feel right now is just not going to resonate and stick with me. I did appreciate it, though. I'm going to give Herdling a 7 out of 10. The ubiquitous Chris Pratt is an executive producer on The Terminalist Dark Wolf, which is a prequel to the hit Amazon show The Terminalist. I believe this Dark Wolf prequel series is also now a big hit, and I think more of this show is coming. It stars Taylor Kitsch, who is also in The Terminalist, and Tom Hopper is in the show as well. You'll remember him from the Umbrella Academy. And these guys play kick-ass soldiers who get embroiled in some clandestine espionage, who have to do some undercover work and go on missions. And what happens at the beginning of the show is you kind of understand why Ben Edwards, the character that Taylor Kitsch plays, has had to leave his military brothers and sisters and kind of go a little bit more rogue and become this operative. And even though he's well regarded and well loved, he does something in the very first episode that shocks everybody. It's a good first episode, but also the show kind of starts off a little bit formulaic for me. I wasn't sure that I was going to get into it. So, you know, super jingoistic and super rah-rah at the beginning. It was a little emotionally stunted, but what happens with this show, and I found this with The Terminalist, which I also did enjoy as well, is that it starts to dig deep into character motivations and the ramifications of choices and the power of these individuals as the pressure and the stakes and the violence wraps up. It's a great combustible collection of ingredients, and it does really pay off by the 4th episode in Dark Wolf. And there's only one episode left, I think, this season that I haven't seen, but I'm in. I mean, the 4th episode of this show was shocking, and there were some really heavy sequences, really heavy scenes, and you cared about all of the characters, all the partners for Ben Edwards, and you're really starting to question who you can trust and who's trying to backstab who and who's working for who. And I like the Jason Bourne kind of quality of it. It's got a pretty decent budget, and so we're seeing some spectacular action sequences, and everybody is fully committed. Taylor Kitsch is just a fantastic action actor. He was really good in that Western series, Primeval. You just believe him. He's like a stoic guy of few words, but he's gonna deliver. You know, he's gonna be there and he's gonna help you and he's gonna take care of the situation no matter what kind of pain he has to deal with. And he has to deal with a tremendous amount of pain in this season of Dark Wolf. Listen, I enjoy the show. I think it's pretty damn fun. It's certainly in well-trodden territory. It's shades of what we already saw in The Terminalist, and Amazon's got this kind of subgenre like Jack Ryan and other Tom Clancy types of shows and stuff on their service. There's a lot of macho military kind of TV, but this is just good. It's just really well made, and people that made it clearly cared a hell of a lot to entertain us and to shock us and to take us on a ride. I am enjoying The Terminalist Dark Wolf, and I think you should check it out if you're into this kind of stuff. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I've been a big fan of what Atari has been doing recently, reimagining some of their classic brands. And the latest one that they've done is called Adventure of Samsara, which takes the adventure game from the Atari 2600, which honestly, I never could get into that thing. It was too simplistic even back in the day for me, visually. But Adventure of Samsara is also simplistic. It reminded me a little bit of Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, that fantastic iPad game from years ago. Really primitive looking pixel art, but so much is conveyed in this primitive art. The beautiful snow effects and the lighting effects and the creatures and the animations. I think when I fell in love with this is when I saw this gelatinous cube with all of these different swords and weapons stuck into it, sort of crawling towards me. And of course you can hack and slash it and it's gone. And it leaves little jewels behind. The game uses a lot of Metroidvania trappings, so you're going to be finding keys and items that will unlock areas that will let you go deeper and deeper within its map. The map gets quite large and there's a lot of stuff to do. You're going to see a nice fusion between sort of sci-fi type content and a lot of old school Knights and Dragons type stuff in here as well. And it is a nice visual set piece to get lost in. I really enjoyed my experience playing Adventure of Samsara. I streamed it the other day and I included it after we played through a lot of Bubsy in the Perfect Collection, and this was almost like an antidote to the cacophony of Bubsy and how insane that was and how over the top the music was. Everything in this game is a lot more chill, a lot more moody, but it's incredibly satisfying. And I love these little pixelated, tiny little animations on everybody. You're gonna get into some big boss fights. Timing is key. You've got a cool block maneuver, but you've also got a swipe out of the way kind of maneuver as well. And you're of course gonna augment your weaponry. You're gonna find a blacksmith. There's all kinds of extra items that you can pick up along the way. This is a really fun game. The tough thing with Adventure of Samsara is that it is coming out in a period when we are flooded with excellent 2D experiences like Silk Song and Ninja Gaiden Ragebound and Shinobi Art of Vengeance. The list is long and it's getting longer. We're gonna have Terminator 2D pretty soon and Marvel Cosmic Invasion, like lots of good things in 2D. And so it's a little cluttered, and I think it's getting a little bit buried, but if you love these types of games, if you love like old school computer games or D&D or Metroidvanias or adventure for the Atari 2600 or what Atari has been cooking up recently, you should check this out. I think this game is really cool. I'm gonna give Adventure of Samsara an 8 out of 10. I'm always down for a Sonic the Hedgehog game, so even though this was the year of Mario Kart World, I was very happy to see that Sonic Racing CrossWorlds was headed our way. This is developed by Sonic Team, and I don't know if there's any Sumo vets or anything like that. Sumo made some excellent Sonic racers in the past, most especially Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which was absolutely incredible. And this, I think, pulls a lot from Racing Transformed because you are transforming into boats and to flying vehicles. It also is a collection of different cars and crafts. So you've got cars that handle a little bit better, cars that have better acceleration or they're more powerful. There's also this hoverboard that you can choose as well. And what is incredible about this game are these portals that happen within each of the tracks that you're racing on that will take you into a totally different environment. And it's such a Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart mind-breaking experience every time you do that. You just can't help but have a huge smile on your face. The music is very propulsive and loud and in your face, and it's gonna be obnoxious for some. I freaking love it, and it's also going to be repetitious. That's the one thing too. The more and more that you play, because there's singing in a lot of these tunes, and you're going to hear that song over and over again. It's hard not to sing along as you're playing, but I think that not everybody in your household is going to appreciate all that music. But I love the diversity in the environments and this constant kind of change that's happening. There are random environments and challenge levels that you're going to find, and of course the big story about CrossWorlds are all the partnerships that Sega is working out. So SpongeBob is already teased, Minecraft is already teased. I think Mega Man is coming to this game, and Pac-Man is teased a little bit within the game already. And who knows how long the roadway is going to be on this. I think Sega has crafted something that can last and last and last. It's also cross-play on a bunch of different consoles out there. I played it on the PlayStation 5 Pro and it looked absolutely gorgeous. The water reflection effects and the shininess on everything, the shiny surfaces, the shininess on all the rings. As you're racing, you're also trying to collect things, like collect little red rings and stuff that unlocks the currency that allows you to customize your vehicles and add decals and all kinds of cool stuff to them. And also the handling and the flexibility of these vehicles is just so freaking fun. It's so addictive. I wasn't able to play this online. I've been reviewing this before it's released out to the entire world out there, so I have yet to see how the online performance is. I noticed that they took out some of the buffs for online play right now because they're probably still tweaking it. I was thinking as I was playing it, like, what an incredibly challenging game to balance and to test, because there's so many variables in this game. But that's what makes it so freaking extraordinary and so fun. And yes, even in the face of Mario Kart World, I've played a hell of a lot of this game, and I do think it's fantastic. But as I've played it, I've also seen it doesn't have the depth, it doesn't have the battle modes, and I played some of the side modes and they felt even more insanely busy and confusing than the core racing through the Grand Prix does. It's a little more chill, you know what I'm saying, Mario Kart World? So it's more fun to just kind of cruise around this open world. Even if it's a little empty, it's still really fun to kind of cruise around through there, and you can't beat the battle mode, and Knockout Tour is incredible in Mario Kart World, as we all know. That being said, I do think that Sega has the platform here to just keep improving and tweaking and adding to Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. It is a hell of a lot of fun. I'm gonna give what I've played so far an 8.5 out of 10. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Reviews on the Run. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hitting that sub button and for hitting that little bell to be notified when we post new videos. Make sure you tune in for some of the live streams that we do, and we will see you soon. Until then, play forever.